Welcome to this week's Real Estate Weekly Lesson. Today I'm going to talk about how to find private money lenders. And this was a request I got from one of my followers on Instagram. So hopefully this can bring you some value. If you're not familiar with me, I've been a full-time real estate investor now for 10 years. I've done over 400 properties and I've raised a lot of private money. So if you get value from this video or this podcast, depending on how you're consuming it, if you can do me a favor, subscribe to my YouTube channel, like the video. If you could share this with someone else who you think would benefit from it, that would be great. And let's get right into it. So private money, let's just define that first. And the way that I look at private money, because there's a lot of hard money lenders that say that they're private money lenders, but they're really not. A hard money lender is a company that loans money for, commercial purposes. It's a company, right? It's not an individual. A private money lender is an individual who loans money to another business or sometimes an individual. So look at it like this. A hard money company is like a Kiavi or, Lending One, etc. Private money is like borrowing it from your friends, your family, someone in your network, but it's an individual loaning you money to do a real estate project. And usually the private money is secured by a mortgage or a deed of trust, depending on the state you're in. Sometimes it's just a straight up note agreement where there's no collateral, but it's borrowing money from your network and your inner circle in order to do real estate deals. So that's how I define private money. A good example is like one of my biggest private lenders is a friend of mine from the real estate industry who I've been borrowing money from for 6+ years. They used to invest heavily in real estate. Now they as a flipper and a wholesaler, and now they're more of a private lender because they've evolved their business over time. So that's a private lender, right? It's when you call an individual up and you can dictate the terms of whatever you want. You can control the interest rate. You can control the way that it's paid back. You can control the term, like how long you borrow the money from. There's no guidelines. It's just up to you and the lender. So that's private money. So let's talk about how do you find people like that? Well, first of all, social media, right? If you're on social media and you're posting about deals you're doing and you're talking about the lessons you learn, i.e. what I do all the time, you're going to attract people who might want to invest with you as a private lender, right? Like some people, they have money, but they don't have any time and they want to flip houses, but they don't want to go through all the drama of dealing with contractors and selling things on the market. And they'd rather just put their money with a successful flipper and get a reasonable interest rate. And that's how they'll make their profit. So that's how they'll invest in real estate. So social media is probably the easiest way to get private money lenders. Now, when you're doing that, and I'm not giving you legal advice here, but when you're raising money on social media, unless you have a fund set up, you cannot offer an interest rate online. Like you can't just make a post and say, hey, I'm looking for an investor in my deal. I'll give you a 14% interest rate. DM me if you're interested. Unless you have a fund set up, I think it's a 506B or whatever the fund is called, you can't actively solicit private money because you're selling a security basically. So you got to be careful with how you promote the private money. A good way to do it would be to, hey, I'm investing in a few more projects this month. I'm looking for some partners to get involved in the real estate deals with me. If you're interested in investing in some of my real estate deals as a partner, let me know. And then bam, there you go. Then you talk to them and you explain to them how they can, invest in your deal as a private money lender, but you can't actively promote interest rates online unless you have a fund set up. And that's something I see people do all the time. And I used to make that mistake back before I learned that lesson. So social media is the first thing. Second thing is just talking to your network, right? Going to events, going to, family dinner parties, or just talking with people on a daily basis, telling people what you're up to. People are like, hey, what do you do? What do you do for a living? Oh, I invest in real estate. I help people invest in real estate as well. And, when you have those conversations, a lot of the times, people are interested in real estate, right? Like not everybody is going to be a big time house flipper, but most people would love to invest in real estate if they had the time or the knowledge. And a lot of the times you'd be surprised, especially when, where I live, like there's a lot of money around where I live. It's like people have money and they want to invest that money in real estate and they don't know how to flip a house. They don't know how to find a deal. They don't know how to manage a contractor. They don't know how to run comps, but they got 500 grand and it might be not doing well in the stock market. And maybe they'll take 100 of that and invest it with you. So, just telling people what you're doing and combining that with social media, that's really the easy low-hanging fruit in terms of, getting investors to invest in your deals. Those are the two big ways. You could, in theory, cold call lenders, which will be the third way I guess I'll share. And then I'll talk about when you should borrow private money, when you shouldn't, et cetera. And then I'll wrap the video up. So the way that I go about the third way, this has worked for me, is, if someone's loaning private money and they're doing a mortgage or a deed of trust, those are public record documents. So when you get a mortgage on a property, no matter where you are in the country, there's a recording of that mortgage with the county clerk, right? So you can see who wrote the mortgage, who borrowed the money, what was the interest rate, what were the terms. You can see all that on the public record. So if you went to like Putnam County, New York, where a place where I do business, and you wanted to look at all the mortgages that were recorded in Putnam County, you can see that practically for free. The easier way to do this is to just, social media and your network. But if you really wanted to like reverse engineer private lenders, you could go into like, whatever county you're in. You can look at all the open mortgages that have been originated within the last year, which there's a lot of them. So I would probably go within the last couple months. And then when you're looking for the actual like lender, instead of seeing a company like Bank of America, KeyBank, you look for the person who gave the mortgage and you see if it's an individual. And if it's an individual, then that's most likely a private money lender. Or if it's like, a random LLC that's not a bank, like XYZ Funding LLC or, XYZ IRA, like look at something that's not a bank and most likely that's a private lender. If it's a Kiavi or something, that's more of a bank. But if you see an individual on the public records gave a mortgage to a company, 90% chance that's a private money lender who loaned an entity money for, real estate deals. So you can literally go into your county, see this online. It's going to have their name. It's going to have their address. I don't think it'll have their phone number most likely, but you could take the person's name who gave the loan out. You could take their address. You could skip trace them. You can call them up and say, hey, my name is so-and-so. I saw that you gave a mortgage on 123 Main Street. I'm a flipper. I'm looking for more private lenders. Would you ever be open to potentially loaning me private money if the numbers made sense? And, there you go. That's the conversation. So that's a third way you can do it. I would say that's probably the hardest way to do it because you're like cold approaching somebody and you might get some resistance. But hey, if you make enough calls, you'll probably get some private money. And then the last thing I'll say about private money is like, when should you do it and when should you not do it? And that is something where I see people like borrow private money before they really should. So in my opinion, and the way that I've done it is I didn't really start getting private money until I had more experience as a flipper because unlike hard money, a private money lender sometimes isn't really going to do any underwriting. They're just going to give you the money if they know, like, and trust you. So like they say in Spider-Man, great power comes great responsibility. If you have the ability to borrow money from individuals and they trust you, you need to understand what you're doing and you need to know what's going on in that real estate deal because if something goes south on that private money loan, not only could you be on the hook personally if you sign a guarantee, but you don't want to ruin a relationship over a bad deal because you didn't know what you're doing. So I always tell people, get hard money for your first 5 flips. And then when you're successful on those 5 flips, you're going to see a pattern of why you were successful and the numbers you bought it out and the rehab budget and whatever the case might have been. And then once you have that experience level, then I would borrow private money. I wouldn't do it right off the bat because let's say you don't know what you're doing. You borrow private money from someone who knows you. You lose their money, and next thing you know, now you're screwed. Now you don't have a good track record and you're fucked. Use a hard money lender as a backstop in the beginning because the hard money lender is only going to give you the money if it's a good deal. If it's a bad deal, they're not going to give you the money or they're going to make you put a ton of money down. So use hard money in the beginning, build up your track record, and then once you have your track record of 5 successful flips or rentals or whatever, you can take those deals, show them to your private lender and say, hey, these are the last 5 deals I've done. I've made money on all of them. This is the profits. This is what the hard money lender made. I'd love to just give you the interest instead of this big hard money company. So that's really what I would tell you if you want to borrow private money successfully is use a lender to start, a hard money lending company to start. Once you have that experience and the confidence, then I would get involved with the private lenders because then it's a lot easier. You don't have to worry about, sometimes you don't have to make them interest payments. You just do it all in a balloon on the back end. You can borrow all the money. Like you could do whatever you want as long as you guys are on the same page. And then the last piece of advice, I know I said that earlier, but I have really one more for you, is that when you're borrowing money from your private lenders, especially in the beginning, maybe it's your first loan, don't borrow all the money because private money, you can do whatever you want as long as you guys agree. So I would look at the private lender as like a de facto hard money lender on the first loan, which means you should put some skin in the game on your first deal with them. So instead of getting 100% of the purchase, borrow 90% of the purchase from that lender and show the lender you're putting 10% down. Show the lender that you're willing to put some skin in the game first to prove to them that you know what you're doing. And then once they get comfortable with you and they see your track record, then, when you get a home run deal where there's a ton of equity, you can borrow all the money and you can be out of pocket zero personally. So those are my tips on private money. Thank you for whoever sent this question in. I really appreciate that. This is something that if you have access to, you can really do volume in this business, and it makes the capital side a breeze because you don't have to worry about it because it's not your money. If you are a listener or a viewer of the show and you have more topics you want me to discuss, send me a DM at Grego37 on what you want me to cover. And if you are in the Seattle area or the Hudson Valley or Delaware and you have a house that you want to wholesale to me or wholesale with me, send me a deal if you got something. My email is greg@velocityhousebuyers.com. My Instagram handle is at Grego37, and I'll see you on the next REI Weekly Lesson. Take care.